calendar ping came at 2:38 p.m. Compliance briefing, 3:15 p.m., room 3B. No details, no sender. I didn't ask questions. I just closed my laptop and stood up. As I walked toward the back hallway, I saw him, Braden Locke, my boss, VP of Product, standing too close to a woman who should have been nowhere near this building today, Sienna. She smiled when she saw me, subtle, controlled. "I thought I'd bring you lunch," she said, holding up a brown bag like this was just a kind gesture. "You skipped breakfast again." Her voice was sweet, exactly how you speak to someone you're about to leave behind. I nodded. "You came all the way here just for that?" Sienna glanced at Braden but didn't answer me. He stepped away like his hands were clean. I didn't wait for more. I walked past them and opened the door to room 3B. Inside was Megan, the HR director. She didn't stand. She didn't smile. There was just a folder on the table in front of her. "Logan," she said, "please sit down." I didn't. She adjusted her tone, calm, practiced. "We've received multiple concerns about your recent behavior. Issues with communication, erratic decision-making, emotional intensity. After review, and with support from executive leadership, the company has decided to terminate your employment, effective immediately." She slid the folder across the table. "Your severance details are inside. Your access has already been revoked." I stared at her. "You talked to Braden first?" I asked. She looked down. That was all the confirmation I needed. I picked up the folder and walked out. Braden was no longer in the hallway. Sienna was standing by the glass windows, texting someone, probably him. When I passed, she looked up. Not surprised, not nervous, just composed. "You okay?" she asked like she cared. "Sure," I said. "Why wouldn't I be?" She smiled again, the same way she did when she got away with something. I kept walking. "My name is Logan West, 40 years old. Until 15 minutes ago, I was director of systems at North Haven Tech, based in Denver. Now I'm jobless. My wife cheated on me with my boss. I suspected it weeks ago, when she started dressing differently to work from cafes, when Braden suddenly had excuses to loop her into conversations about product branding. When she got quiet every time I walked into the room with her phone still unlocked. But I stayed silent. I needed proof. Instead, they struck first. The story was simple. I was unwell. That's how these things go. Especially when the boss controls the narrative and the wife plays concerned. I reached my car and opened the folder. Termination notice, exit schedule. One line stood out. Severance payout, $96,000, hush money, clean break, just enough to make me go quietly. But I wasn't angry, not yet, because I didn't see an ending in that number. I saw a budget. They thought this would bury me. They forgot who I was before the meetings and deadlines, before the polite nods and slide decks, before I built the team Braden now runs. They buried the wrong man. I folded the paperwork neatly and slid it into the glove box. Then, without emotion, I said out loud, "Fine, I'll take your money." And after a breath, ice cold, "I'll take the company too." The badge scanner turned red before I even reached the elevator. I stood there for a full 3 seconds, hands still resting on the reader, as the light flashed, "Denied," in a bold strip across the security panel. The hallway was empty, too late for lunch, too early for end-of-day traffic. But someone had planned this timing precisely. No scene, no audience, just quiet erasure. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and opened the company portal. Locked out, email, disabled, drive, wiped, calendar, gone. I didn't panic. I didn't even exhale. They'd moved quickly, faster than protocol, faster than HR usually does for anything short of legal action. Which meant this wasn't a reaction. It was coordinated. Someone had drafted those documents ahead of time, walked them into HR, pulled strings in compliance. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted me gone now. I turned around and walked straight out of the building. No stops, no eye contact. I passed reception and gave the same flat nod I'd always used. She didn't return it. That's when it hit me. They already knew. Not just HR, not just Braden, the staff, the interns, the desk admin I bought coffee for every Thursday. Everyone had been briefed in whispers. Something's wrong with Logan. He hasn't been himself lately. HR's keeping an eye on him. It wasn't just a lie. It was a narrative. I got into my car and closed the door slowly, deliberately. The envelope was still there. I hadn't touched it since I'd placed it in the glove box. When I finally opened it, the first page confirmed what I already sensed. The non-disparagement clause was airtight. No legal action, no statement, no version of events. Not without triggering financial penalties that would gut most people. They were betting I couldn't afford to fight. And they were right. But what they didn't count on, what Juliana didn't factor into her careful little script, was that I'd been planning to leave for a while. Not for the same reasons. Not like this. But I'd known. I'd watched the company shift from engineering-driven to optics first. I'd watched Braden water down my team's work to meet quarterly presentations. I'd sat through one too many budget reviews where excellence lost to market buzzwords. And I'd started to plan. What they thought was a blow to the chest was just a minor adjustment to my timeline. I reread the check amount, $96,000. They framed it like a favor. Generous, Megan had called it. Enough to float me 3 months, maybe 6 if I cut back. But I didn't see it as survival money. I saw it as a buy-in. Over the past year, I'd registered a name. Quietly. Privately. One no one at North Haven knew about. I'd been building infrastructure on weekends, testing tools, vetting vendors. I knew where the inefficiencies were. I'd built them myself under pressure from Braden's short-term playbook. All I needed was capital. They just gave it to me. I sat in silence for a long time, didn't move, didn't start the car. I thought about Juliana. When we met, I admired her discipline, her clean planning, her ability to forecast other people's moves before they made them. What I didn't see, what I refused to admit, was that she used that same skill to control the people closest to her. She never yelled. She never blamed. She simply rewrote events in real time, like a script she knew only she could edit. If I got upset, "You're tired." If I raised a concern, "You're misreading it." If I confronted her about the distance between us, "You're imagining things." Now I understood what that was. Not doubt, gaslight, not distance, replacement. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was sorting. This wasn't grief. It was data. One clean spreadsheet of who betrayed me, when, and how. I closed the glove box and adjusted the rearview mirror. No phone calls, no explanations, no defense. If they wanted silence, I'd give it to them. But not the kind they expected. Because there's a difference between going quietly and planning quietly. And I knew exactly which one I was doing. I didn't start anything that day. I went home, cooked dinner, and folded laundry while the streetlights clicked on outside. The apartment was quiet, too clean, the kind of sterile calm you only notice when the fight's already over. And you're the only one who didn't realize there'd been one. Sienna wasn't home. Of course not. She texted 2 hours earlier. Running late. Don't wait up. I didn't respond. I turned off read receipts a week ago. There was no confrontation, no demand for answers, no late-night yelling match. That wasn't how this would go. I wasn't interested in closure. I was interested in results. The next morning, I got up at 6. I brewed coffee. I sat at my desk and opened a folder labeled Viridian Drafts. No logos, no tags. Just design work I'd been chipping away at since January, long before Braden gave me feedback about being too ambitious. Viridian wasn't a startup yet, just an idea. A platform I believed in enough to prototype silently, in weekends and margins. Smart automation for fleet logistics, the kind of product Northaven didn't think mattered because it didn't look good on a slide deck. But I knew it had teeth, real-world value. I'd already run models on it, built simulations. Quietly pitched it under the table to a friend at a logistics firm. His exact words, "If you build this right, we'll be your first client." That was 6 weeks ago, back when I still had to pretend to play nice inside Northaven. Now I had $96,000, no obligations, and the freedom to burn bridges without alerting anyone I was holding matches. I started by rewriting the scope deck. Every assumption I'd made to fit Northaven's quarterly obsession, I erased. Every shortcut I'd been forced to take, I rewired. I laid out the infrastructure exactly the way I would have if I hadn't spent the past 2 years appeasing Braden's shallow metrics. And I worked in silence. 3 weeks passed. I didn't take calls. I didn't answer emails. My phone buzzed occasionally with, "How have you been?" messages from former coworkers. I let them rot unread. Sienna asked if I was okay. I said I was focusing. She didn't push. We lived like two satellites orbiting the same dead planet, civil, quiet, drifting further apart by the day. She stopped asking if I wanted dinner. I stopped asking where she'd been. And in the background, Viridian grew. I rebuilt the API structure. I optimized latency. I mapped the beta client's workflow to match our new approach. Then I reached out to a woman named Claire Min, a systems engineer I'd worked with briefly during a previous job in Houston. She'd left to join a firm in the Valley. Sharp, methodical, allergic to corporate politics. The kind of person you'd want beside you if the goal was speed without spotlight. She replied within an hour. "Send me the specs. If it's real, I'm in." 2 days later, we signed a non-compete safe advisory agreement. She'd help shape the back end. No titles, no LinkedIn posts, just output. Week 4, I scheduled a coffee with Dean Phillips, the same logistics manager who said he'd be my first client. I showed him the updated dashboard, the load prediction algorithm, the real-time rerouting logic based on variable supply delays. He looked up halfway through the demo and said, "How soon can I pay you?" I didn't smile, just slid a simple proposal across the table. No jargon, no layered contracts. A 3-month pilot, cheap, scalable, no risk for him. Everything on me. He signed before the coffee cooled. I walked out with the client. Sienna still hadn't asked how my week went. Braden still thought I was unemployed. And Northaven had no idea one of their unstable ex-directors had just onboarded a contract with one of their dormant leads, because what they saw as instability was just momentum they never understood. Let them think I disappeared. Let them forget my name. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was building something they couldn't see until it was too late. By the end of month 2, Viridian had traction. Not headlines, not hype, but traction. The kind that doesn't make noise but keeps clients coming back. Dean's team pushed our routing model live across their West Coast fleet. They shaved 12% off their delivery times in the first week. That wasn't a case study. That was leverage. I didn't post anything publicly. No press release. No stealth launch tease. Not even a website. We ran it lean. Just a landing page with a contact form and a private onboarding tunnel. You didn't find Viridian unless someone whispered it to you. And people started whispering. Claire brought in 2 more mid-sized partners from her old network. Freight analytics firms who didn't want to risk public bets on a brand new platform, but were more than willing to run back-channel trials if it meant beating their competitors by 0.5%. We were profitable by week 10. And still, no one from North Haven noticed. I wasn't just winning, I was invisible. Braden hadn't changed his tune either. Through a mutual connection, one of the few people I still trusted, I learned he'd been casually referring to me as burned out. Said I was too rigid to adapt and had been struggling to keep up with market demands. That last line stayed with me, not because it stung, but because it was projection. Braden didn't build, he adapted. He chased trend lines and buzzwords, not value. Every decision he made came down to boardroom optics. He didn't know what it meant to architect something, to own every layer from back-end to delivery. He only knew how to manage momentum. And Juliana, still silent, still pretending. She started leaving earlier, coming home later, staying in the shower longer. Smiling a little too hard at texts she never let me see. She asked how I was doing once. I told her I was keeping busy. She nodded like that was enough. She didn't ask what I was working on. I didn't tell her I just filed an anonymous acquisition inquiry on a small logistics software firm tied to one of North Haven's second-tier vendors. I didn't tell her the server Viridian was hosted on was housed under an LLC I formed the day after I got fired, an entity with no ties to my name, no traceable link to my resume, and no discoverable metadata. I didn't tell her that 3 of Braden's current B2B clients had already filled out contact forms on our landing page and scheduled exploratory demos with Claire. I just said, I'm fine. And I was. Because this wasn't revenge yet. It was positioning. I was drawing lines, testing weaknesses, mapping old pain points into new product features. Every corner they cut at North Haven became a module I perfected. Every compromise Braden forced into our timelines became an optimization I finally had time to finish. One night just before midnight, I checked our onboarding queue and saw a name I hadn't expected. Jensen Fleet Co., a North Haven client. Not top tier, but recurring. I clicked the inquiry. It was vague, someone exploring route optimization for their winter fleet, but the email address matched a logistics lead I used to work with directly. I didn't reply. I let them sit in the funnel. Let them stew, because I knew what was coming. Braden had scaled too fast. His ops team was overloaded. The flashy UI redesign he forced into the Q4 roadmap had broken integration with multiple clients who needed stability, not sizzle. And his obsession with partner expansion had left his core offerings hollowed out. He was bleeding quietly, and I was building in the silence he left behind. Viridian didn't need exposure, it needed momentum. And we had it. What they thought was just a severance check was now the operating budget of their quiet replacement. What they thought was a character problem was just a refusal to fake competence for comfort. I looked at the old badge I'd kept in my desk drawer, still magnetized, still useless, And I smiled for the first time in weeks. It was month 4 when I saw her name again. Not on a text, not in a calendar, on a contract. I hadn't been looking for it. Viridian's 3rd pilot program had just converted to full license, and we were knee-deep in onboarding when Claire forwarded me an updated service doc. It was from a legal team we'd brought in to automate procurement approvals. Subject line: Asset transfer, Wilson Freight Systems, terms finalized. I opened it without thinking. Half a page in, I stopped. Right under Stakeholder Liaison was the name. Sienna Lockhart. There it was, clear, centered, professional. Her role listed as Contracting Officer, Client Experience. She hadn't changed her name after marriage. She kept her maiden name at work. I used to think that was her way of maintaining independence. Now I knew it was so her trail stayed clean. Wilson Freight had recently split its digital operations between 2 vendors, North Haven and a smaller firm they quietly acquired last year to patch gaps. The same gaps we now outperformed with less overhead and faster rollout. We weren't just replacing infrastructure, we were replacing relationships. I sat in silence for a full minute. This wasn't personal anymore. It was a collision course. Sienna had signed off on our contract. Unwittingly, I ran a background check on the document path. Confirmed it. Her digital signature time-stamped, routed, approved. I could see the version history. I could see the edits. I could see the note she left in the margin. Seems redundant, but fast. If it's cheap, I say move. Not detailed, not defensive, not careful. Just casual enough to mean she didn't recognize the name. She didn't realize I was Viridian because she thought I was still stuck. Still licking my wounds, still broke and directionless. She didn't know the LLC I built was scrubbed of my identity, that our legal structure was designed to avoid tracebacks, that even our Stripe backend was registered under a Wyoming subsidiary buried beneath a private trust. She didn't know the man she had fired, humiliated, and quietly replaced had just onboarded a product under her nose. And Braden, he definitely didn't know. He still posted about leadership resilience on LinkedIn like he wasn't bleeding accounts in silence. He still quoted books he never read and used phrases like disruptive transparency in keynotes no one filmed. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the contract. The irony was surgical. She had handed me the weapon, and she didn't even realize it. The temptation to tell her, right then, right there, was strong. A single screenshot, a subject line, a sentence. Thanks for your signature. But I didn't, because that would spoil it. I didn't want shock. I wanted impact. I wanted the moment of recognition to come with weight, not from a message, but from a move. I emailed Claire. Close the deal. No changes. I printed the contract, framed it. Then I made a single note in my revenge log. Yes, I had one. A simple spreadsheet. One tab labeled Acquired via Proxy. Row 4, column B now read, Sienna Lockhart, approved Viridian contract, number 11321. I didn't feel victorious. I felt surgical. They had designed the perfect lie. That I was unstable. That I couldn't handle pressure. That I was spiraling. They didn't expect me to get still. And stillness, when done right, isn't surrender. It's targeting. I put the framed contract beside the old severance letter. Same ink, same paper weight. One pushed me out. The other let me in. The invitation came in the form of a forwarded email. Subject: Sienna's surprise party, Friday at 6 p.m., office lounge. Claire sent it to me with no comment, just the forward. I stared at the RSVP list, dozens of names, company side, client side. Braden's was at the top. The location? North Haven's new leased office, shared with a logistics incubator in a warehouse conversion just outside the city. The same space Viridian now partially owned. Because 3 weeks ago, I'd finalized a quiet acquisition, not of North Haven, not yet, but of the incubator. We did it through a third shell, an investment holding company based in Delaware. No traceable connection to Viridian, no tie to me. The moment the ink dried, we became co-owners of the office Braden used to impress clients and celebrate birthdays. They didn't know that yet, but I did. And Friday, that would be the reveal, not through an announcement, not in a press release, but through control. The party was predictable. Cheap champagne, catered sushi, the usual mix of staff trying to look relaxed while tracking where the conversations were happening. I arrived 15 minutes late. No one recognized me at first. The beard helped, the tailored coat. I didn't wear tech startup anymore. I wore clean neutrality, just another investor visiting the space. Braden noticed me eventually. His smile faltered, then reassembled. He walked over with a practiced greeting and a forced chuckle. Well, look who crawled back into the sunlight. I didn't return the smile. Mr. Locke, I said evenly. I believe you've met my partner, Claire Min. She stepped in on cue, offering a silent nod. Braden's face twitched. He looked back and forth between us. I continued. I believe you've also been leasing space here under a fixed-term contract. He blinked. Right. Through the incubator. Why? I handed him a clean envelope. Inside, a formal notice of ownership change. It stated clearly, your current lease expires next quarter. Continued access requires a new application. Legal, precise, cold. He opened it, scanned the first few lines, then froze. You're bluffing, he said. I turned towards the lounge stage where Sienna was laughing with a glass in hand. Someone had just handed her a cake. She looked relaxed, adored. I nodded at her. She's next. Braden turned pale. What the hell are you talking about? You'll want to read the rest of the letter. He flipped to the second page. I watched his eyes lock on the line. Per corporate policy, all current vendor-side stakeholders with open conflicts of interest will be subject to immediate contract review. And just below that, name flagged, Sienna Lockhart. He looked up. You're terminating her? No, I said. You are. He stepped forward like he might say something, defend her, deny the relationship, reframe the whole thing. I didn't give him the chance. You submitted a false HR report, I said quietly. You staged a narrative. You exploited trust to push me out. Braden tried to scoff, but it broke halfway. You never built anything, I added. You just played power. I let him hold the letter. I walked past him. Sienna saw me before I reached her. Her smile cracked as recognition set in. She opened her mouth, but I spoke first. Your contract's being reviewed. She looked confused. What contract? Viridian, Wilson Freight. You signed off on it. She took a half step back. I didn't know it was you. I know. There was a pause. Then she laughed, like she could spin it. This is insane. This is petty. No, I said. This is ownership. Then I stepped aside. Let the silence carry the rest. Claire tapped her watch. Time? I nodded. She stepped onto the low platform beside the cake, clapped twice, and announced, Quick update before dessert. Effective today, the ownership of this space has transferred. Details will be sent Monday. No applause, just silence. Sienna stood still, holding a plastic fork. The room stared. Braden was gone. I didn't need to stay. I walked out through the front door I now controlled, and I didn't look back. The Monday after the party, I sat at a quiet cafe with no sign, no brand, and no music. Just the sound of ceramic cups on wood and the occasional printer grinding out receipts. I wasn't hiding. I was listening. The noise hadn't hit the press yet, but the calls had already started. A former North Haven client emailed Claire to ask why they were being told to migrate their services. One of Braden's junior analysts left a voicemail asking if we were open to absorbing laid-off talent. The intern who used to refill the coffee machine sent a LinkedIn connection with a note. Didn't know you were behind Viridian. Makes sense now. I didn't accept it. I just archived the message and let the ripples spread. The building Braden once used for product launches was now under our name. The conference room he'd renamed The Hub had already been rekeyed and leased to a private equity firm we partnered with. His nameplate came off the wall that same Sunday. It sat in a cardboard box outside the service door when I left. As for Sienna, she did what I expected. She panicked quietly. She emailed me the next morning. Subject line, "Can we talk?" No salutation, no body text. Just that. I didn't reply. Because there was nothing left to say. She didn't deserve closure, and I didn't owe her a storyline. The lie she helped build was efficient, sterile. It took under 48 hours to fire me and move on, so I gave her the same efficiency in return. She was removed from the Wilson Freight Liaison Group. Her contract terminated. No feedback form, no appeal, just silence. By the end of the week, Braden had filed for executive leave. Stress-related, someone said. I didn't care. His LinkedIn activity dropped to zero. No posts, no reposts, just a frozen headline. Helping organizations scale smarter. He never built anything smart. Just fast, just loud. And loud doesn't last. The only two former North Haven employees we retained during the office transition were logistics managers, both sharp, undervalued, and tired of managing around Braden's vanity hires. They didn't know who owned Viridian either. Not at first. They just knew the system worked better. Faster dashboards, cleaner integrations, direct support. One of them said in passing, "Feels like the product was built by someone who actually gave a damn." I didn't correct him. I let him believe what he needed to. Because I wasn't building a company anymore. I was building distance between what they thought they did to me and what I turned it into. I kept the framed severance letter on the wall beside the contract Sienna had signed. Same paperweight, different consequences, no grand finale, no press release, no "I showed them" story. Just quiet conversion. The people who cut me out now walked through doors I paid for, logged into systems I wrote, sat in rooms I owned, and they didn't even know it. Because that's the difference between revenge and noise. Noise wants credit, revenge wants control. And now, I had both.